Welcome to another episode of Heated Conversations. I'm super excited. We have a twist in what we are doing. I talked about a little bit that we're going to start having college gymnasts be on the podcast and kind of talk about their own experience to make a better connection for athletes and coaches, to be able to understand kind of what some of these athletes went through and experiences that they had at certain universities that they're currently alumni, and also what they did or what gymnastics allowed them to be able to do in their own careers. So today we have JaNay Honest. JaNay Honest is a gymnast who used to be at UCLA under Ms. Val. And so we're going to intro with JaNay and have her talk about her experience at UCLA under Ms. Val and that staff. And just please comment, please leave like and subscribe to the channel, and please share so then we can get more conversations and also better questions. And please leave questions that you may want me to ask future guests. So welcome, JaNay. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well, doing well.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining. It's been some time since you and I have probably seen each other. It's probably been since maybe like 2019, maybe.
Yeah, I think 2018, 2019, probably.
Yeah, because I think I did UCLA camp probably 2 or 3, I think 3 years in a row, starting in 2018 or 19.
Okay, yeah, and I definitely did it after graduating in 2018. So, yeah. Oh my gosh, so it's been a minute. It's been a pretty long time.
Yeah. So UCLA, obviously, it's one of those schools that has a lot of notoriety, especially just because it's in California, in LA. It's next to the beach and all that. What were some of the reasons why you chose to go to UCLA?
Yeah, so my dream to be a Bruin started when I was 12. I didn't really start watching college gymnastics until around 11, 12-ish, maybe around 10. Once the Olympic dream kind of came and went, and I was like, okay, college is where I want to go. And I remember specifically always watching Georgia and UCLA. Courtney Coupettes was competing at Georgia at the time, and they were like in their prime and just at the top. But
Yeah.
it was something about UCLA. One, I wanted to stay in California. I didn't like the idea of flying to go to school and being so far from my family. I wanted to be away from my hometown, but, close enough to still be close to my family.
Yeah.
And it was the floor routines. It was college in general just looked so fun. So I knew I wanted to be part of a team, but UCLA, something just drew me to UCLA while watching them. So it was those two schools, but it wasn't until I went to my first UCLA gymnastics summer camp and it sold me. And I always like to tell girls and gymnasts that are wanting to go to college gymnastics to go to the summer camps, because that's what's going to give you the full experience of what going to that school is going to be like. You get to see the dorms, stay in the dorms, eat the food in the dining hall. That was a selling point for me. The food was so good in the dining halls. You get to see the facilities and, interact with the coaches and even some of the current team members on there. And it kind of gives you a feel of the vibe. Can you see yourself being at that school? Can you see yourself, does the school offer the curriculum and the classes that you need to, because obviously we can't be gymnasts for the rest of our lives. So what do you want to do post-grad, and does that school offer, the programs that you need if you want to be a doctor or a lawyer, whatever career you want to pursue. And so, yeah, once I got to the campus, and I think that's when summer camps back in the day, I feel like I can say that now, were like 4 days, like it was 3 nights and 4 days. It was a long camp. So now I feel like they're about 2 or something, but you were there for quite some time. And it was just so much fun. And I remember once I went to that camp, I said, yeah, I want to go to UCLA. This is the school for me. I didn't even want to and then I started just going every summer. And because again, that was my way of interacting with the coaches, kind of showing them that, listen, I'm improving every year and I want to come here. And I know that the rules have changed with recruiting wise, but I know once you're able I think coaches can't respond back to you, right? But you can email them, correct? I think you can email them, but they can't respond back to you. If you can correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I think you can, but they can't interact. So
They can't
until
interact. Okay.
yeah, until you are going into your junior year, so summer going to your junior year, June 15th, is when
Gotcha.
they're able to have that communication back with you.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So but yeah, so that, well, sorry, what was the question? Just so I can stay on track because I can ramble forever.
Oh no, it's good. Why did you choose UCLA?
Why did I choose? Yes. So, okay, so I'm still on track. So basically, then I think I first went when I was around like level 8, level 9, because I was 12. So yeah, I was like level 8, level 9, starting double backs and doing the whole thing because I was working upgrades. So by the time I was a level 10, I was able to do the high performance camp. And that was my first time, experiencing Miss Val, because that's when you're at that like recruiting stage and you're able to just have the high performance, like the level 10. It's like the level 10 range. So you're just working with girls that are in that college phase and wanting to get that more one-on-one experience rather than, the full college camp and you're learning dances and it's fun and, you're with the little kids and everything like that. So, but we had, I remember we had to bring a journal and I still have it to this day. And she really just took us through just different things on, being a full, like what it means to be a student athlete. You're a student first and athlete second. And she also just explained, when it comes to things about mindset and when you're coming to a team that you're contributing to a team. So it's not individualized anymore. It's like a family. And she just explained all these core values. And I said this in my senior speech. And I remember I think it was when I was around 12 or 13, I was very obsessed with UCLA. I was like watching all the interviews and all the meets and stuff like that. And it was in like an article. So it wasn't a video, but I remember a reporter had asked her, what are you looking for in future student athletes? And she said, someone that accepts life's challenges and like, faces them heads on, that faces them like head on. I feel like I want to read this so I don't mess it up. So give me a second because I still have it in my notes since like 2014.
Cool.
Okay.
That's awesome.
Yes. So what Ms. Val wants: integrity, strong character, and appreciation for life's challenges, someone who embraces challenges academically, athletically, and in life. So I remember reading that and I said, okay, like this is going to be my goal by the, like until I'm able to like be recruited, and obviously I didn't have a crazy amount of tunnel vision because, I did want to keep my options open. But UCLA was my main goal, but I definitely did, visit other schools and everything in California that I did have offers at. But I just knew that after having that, like little small team meeting at the high performance camp and her kind of just like going through like core values and what it takes to be a college athlete and the things you got to experience and how you're going to become independent and seeing yourself as more as an athlete as well, because most of us when we're gymnasts, it's all we do. Like we go to school and we go to gymnastics, so it kind of becomes our identity. So when you do graduate, it's kind of hard. And that's when, post-grad depression comes in because you're struggling with an identity thing. And if you don't want to coach, then, okay, I got to start from square one. That's something I went through. And it really just helped me learn like, okay, I am more than just a gymnast and I can embrace that because that's something that I've, I don't know, when you grow up, you're like, oh, JaNay, the gymnast, do a handstand, that's just something you like for all your life.
Right.
But yeah, so that's what sold me. And like I said, I visited other schools, but I just knew that I was going to reach my potential, not only as a gymnast, but as a person under the coaching staff at UCLA. I knew I wanted to, because it kind of depends what you want to, right? I definitely didn't reach my peak in level 10. Like I had much more to learn. and a lot more technique to work on, and I just had more room to grow.
Yeah.
But if you want to go to college and you said, listen, I can be an all-arounder and like the top dog and the star, then it kind of depends. But I knew I needed to surround myself with former elites and Olympians, because that was going to elevate me to be my best self. I was a level 10. I wasn't I came from a smaller gym that didn't have, like, tops came to our gym I think by the time I was 12, so I was already kind of full grown. So learning 10 plus handstands wasn't happening or anything like that. So I knew I needed to surround myself with these gymnasts that I watched on TV to help me elevate to become my best self. So it's really just what you're looking for in an experience, and I knew UCLA would give me that other schools wouldn't. I had no desire to be the top incoming freshman that's competing all around. I didn't want to touch beam. Beam was not my best event, so how about I focus on events that I'm good at. So yeah, so it's also just what you're looking for, what you want to surround yourself with. And I always like to tell girls, the best loophole is to just go to the summer camps, because that's going to give you the best sneak peek on what it's going to be like to be a college gymnast at that school.
Yeah, very good. Well, I appreciate that. I think you touched on some very important things, and one of the things I kind of want to talk about, like you mentioned, Miss Val, because I think a lot of this, and even on this journey that we're talking about, with what we're doing with the podcast and HEAT Performance, which, if you didn't know, HEAT stands for helping equip athletes to transform. So that's kind of the purpose and the mission of what we're trying to do.
I like that.
Yeah, thank you.
It's funny, when I looked up the podcast, I just typed in HEAT Performance, and like the Beyonce performances are coming up. She had the song called Heat, and I was like, oh, I gotta be more specific. So I typed in gymnastics. So I meant to tell you that. I thought it was so funny.
No, that's good. That's good. Hey, Beyonce, if you're watching this, you can sponsor this podcast.
Listen, she's in LA right now performing tonight. Oh, I guess when
is she?
But yeah. So it's the 4th today. So on her birthday, I will not be going, but I have a lot of friends that are going. So anyways, I just had to mention that because I thought it was
text them really quick and see if they can get a hold of her, and send them a link.
I wish.
Yeah, going back to it. So you kind of talked about Miss Val, and kind of, one of the reasons why you wanted to go there was her. And even in your speech, you talked about the values that she wants from a gymnast. Now, can you talk about, who she was to you, and also, along the journey, how did you guys interact, throughout your recruiting journey?
Yeah, so she became like a second mom to me, because again, some girls were traveling internationally or across the country, and you're like away from your family. And again, I remember she was like my big sister. She went to Washington, but she had a lunch with me before I went to college, and she said, okay, JaNay, college gymnastics, like, you're going to go to school for gymnastics, but really you're going to learn to become independent and an adult. And I said, no, I'm going for gymnastics. Like, that's why I'm going to go to college, and I'm going to do gymnastics. But it didn't really click until you get there, because your parents are not there to help you wake up. They're not there to help you with laundry and make sure you're eating and making sure you're waking up on time. Like, obviously we have a lot of support academically, like, academic advisors and stuff like that, but you really need to figure it out. So that's why freshman year is so tough for a lot of student athletes, because you're just trying to survive the day. So she definitely became like a second mom. A lot of tough love for sure. She kept it real with you. She wasn't going to tell you things that she would tell you things that you needed to hear, even though you didn't want to hear them, because it came from a place of love. And I loved what I loved about UCLA, honestly, that I think every team should do. So we took the Enneagram personality test. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's basically this personality test. You have it's 9 types. We have all 9 types in us, but you have obviously you can have one dominant or a tied number, but basically it's a personality test that shows you what you get when you're stressed, what you're when you're in your best mental space, what are your motivators, what triggers you. And so basically you're kind of seeing oh, these are the types of girls that we have on our team. So when I came in freshman year, We had a lot of sixes. I'm a six, so sixes need a plan. Like we like having structure, and we're very organized, and when like spontaneity kind of like stresses us out. So the coaches knew, okay, our team, majority of our team are sixes, and so we need to make sure we plan, like have a game plan for each week. Like we can't, because if we don't, it's going to stress them out. So I just think that was really cool to learn. And I think even in the workplace, like I feel like that can just be beneficial in general, like what kind of people you're getting on your team. And just, especially when it comes to like how they get when they're stressed, and what's the best way to get them back from their stress stage to their, best mental state. And so, yeah, and it's crazy because obviously like I remember my freshman year, there were a lot of sixes. Sevens are very like spontaneous, like so sixes and sevens are kind of opposite, and like you can throw something crazy at a seven and they're gonna like enjoy it, but that's gonna freak a six out. And then yeah, so it's just really, really cool. So I really liked that too, because then I learned a lot about myself. You learn a lot about yourself and you as an individual in college. And Miss Val, she just, I don't know, like she had these Miss Val eyes that were very intimidating. And sometimes you didn't know if you were in trouble or if she was going to give you a nice compliment. So it's, to this day, I still don't know how to navigate it as an adult. And we are like, past that like coach athlete dynamic, like, we just, we are just like, we have a really good relationship. But yeah, I think throughout my 4 years, it really was me, because I was a walk-on. And I earned a scholarship in my senior year.
Nice.
This, like I mentioned before, I passed up, other full scholarship opportunities in California at other schools because I knew UCLA was the best option for me. It's what I was looking for.
Yeah.
And so really my process was knowing and fully understanding that I deserved to be there. And Miss Val made it very clear that we are all on a even level playing field. Like, because you're a walk-on does not mean, you're never going to compete, or that you're less than the girl that's like, an Olympian or an elite or whatever. So, she really emphasized that. And that's something that I really struggled with, especially my freshman year, just because I felt like I had to, I was putting myself in this mindset of like, oh, I'm on thin ice when I wasn't, so she like made it very intentional to be like, no, everyone's on an even playing field. I think Amy Smith, who was, I hold this like walk-on legacy, like the first 10, I think it was Amy Smith, don't quote me, but I'm pretty sure it was, but the first gymnast to score a 10 at UCLA was a walk-on gymnast. And just, and then in my sophomore and junior year and then on, I just began to embrace this walk-on legacy, that you can be a walk-on and you can compete and you can contribute, and you don't have to, obviously go for the scholarship for sure. But if it's something that, because anything can happen, obviously. I think that's why, they changed the rules with the recruiting and stuff, because when you recruit so early, you don't know what's going to happen, in the 6 years when they're like 13 or 14 or something. But definitely go for the scholarship, but just know that it's not the end all be all if you're a walk-on, and you can earn a scholarship. I earned a scholarship. And it was after I kind of gave up the dream of earning one, because I was already going to be a senior, and I was like, okay, like we're going to be a walk-on this entire time. This is amazing. This is great. I like, was fully embracing it. And then, 2 scholarships opened up for the 2 walk-ons that were on the team. It was me and Sonia Mraz. And Sonia, she was the freshman that like competed all around, and she was a walk-on. Like she competed the most out of anybody on the team our freshman year, and she was a walk-on. So, so I would say that was my process of, knowing that I belonged there. I was competing, I was contributing. I was told that I would never compete for UCLA, so really just letting go of those naysayers that were telling me certain things, and really understanding that I was meant to be there. And Miss Val and Kristen Randy, I don't know, really just helped me fully understand that I deserve to be there. And they helped me become my best self and gymnast.
Yeah. No, I think that's good. Like, as you mentioned, having those naysayers. Now, if I may ask, when you say those naysayers, were there people like close to you? Were they, either teammates or your own coaches, or
my own coaches? Yeah, they were my own
back in
coaches.
club, back in, when you're at UCLA, and just to kind of specify, because I think some people feel the same things that you're feeling, so that you can kind of relate it. So
yeah, absolutely. I'm very open on this. Yeah, so it was my club coaches, and I had, when I came back from my first UCLA camp, I was 12. And granted, yes, I was a level 8 and had a long way to go, but I had 6 years to figure it out. And I know, I just feel like I feel like there's a way to go about when you want to be real with your gymnast, but also still encouraging, right? But when I, went to my one of my coaches, and I said, oh, like, I really want to go to UCLA. It's my dream school. And he immediately said, like, oh, you'll never be able to compete for UCLA. And I remember just being taken aback, like, oh, why, I just didn't expect that. I think especially like if your gymnast is not there yet, be like, okay, well, UCLA has elites and Olympians. And besides saying, oh, you'll never be able to do it, like, you have to work really hard. Like, you understand, like, this is the goal. So you need to take these steps to be able to be considered rather than just counting it out fully. And I know they probably were really hoping I would like take a scholarship, but I really had to lean on my support system, which were my parents. My parents knew what my dream was. They knew I wanted to go to UCLA. I had the conversation with them already with, financial stuff, because I would be paying to go to school, but they knew what I wanted. And I knew that I wouldn't be where I am today in my career or what I'm doing if I didn't go to UCLA. If I had gone to, the schools that my club coaches wanted me to go to, I wouldn't be in this situation. I wouldn't be doing the things that I'm doing. And I knew I wouldn't, and granted, and hey, that's why I kept my options open. Like, I went to go visit the schools that they wanted me to go to, but I just didn't get that same feeling, the same fire when I was, going on and visiting the campuses and stuff, but I still went. It's not like I said, hell, I don't want to even visit. Like, I did visit and fully, kept my options open, but I just knew where my heart was. And, eventually they had to accept it by the time I started competing at UCLA. I don't know, just I think it definitely came from there. They wanted the best for me. Yeah, for sure. Like, I'm not saying like they were, discouraging me or anything, but I just think, it was like an interesting way to go about it. Like, it was discouraging. Like, I felt like I had to prove myself that entire time, and that carried over into like my freshman year, because I felt like I didn't belong, because I was told, oh, you're never going to compete. And because I'm being told, JaNay, it's an even playing field, like, you're totally fine. I still had this idea that like I didn't belong there, and that I made the wrong choice. And that, oh, I should have settled and gone to these other schools because, I'm paying for my books, and books are expensive, and like just all these things. But that like really stuck with me, because I was told that for so long, like, but I knew what I wanted. And I'm not, being negative towards them or anything. It's just like the way that I just feel like if I was a coach, I would have been like, hey, this is what's happening. This is how their program looks. So we're going to have to work on this, this, and this. If you really want it, keep your options open, but I'm going to do everything in my power as a coach to get you to your goal, because I know what you want. Right. And as the gymnast grows older, and as and you don't know what's going to happen in the next 6 years, but it's like, still like be real with them, but still be supportive. It was like they counted it out before I even had a chance. I was only 12, like, and so much growth to do. But yeah, so I know it definitely probably came from a place of just like, oh, like, but you can be the star here. And I'm like, I don't want to be the star. I have no desire to be the like, what is it called? Like the freshman of the week and stuff like that. I was like, I am not that good right now. Like, I want to be great. So yeah, so it's just really leaning on your support system, even if it's your own coaches or even friends that are close to you and stuff like that, just really leaning on your support system. And those were my parents at the time. They knew what my dream was, and they had my back the entire time, even in the dinners that we'd have with my coaches when they're like really pushing the other schools on me, and they're like, no, like, our daughter wants to go to UCLA and
Yeah.
have her back. And if this is what she wants to do, this is her choice, and this is what she's going to do. And so, yeah, so that was my experience.
Yeah. So with those coaches, once you started, like you got there and you started competing for them, did you ever have a chance to interact with them? And did they ever like acknowledge that, your dreams that you were saying back then, and their response to it, that you were able to accomplish it and be proud of you for it? Did you ever feel like you got that reciprocation from those coaches?
No, not really. One of them actually would judge at UCLA meets too. And still there was like a disconnect. I remember having a conversation with one of them, and we had to explain like our sides, but I felt like, we still didn't have like see eye to eye even after I graduated and stuff like that. And I remember, they felt hurt for me speaking my truth of like talking about like, listen, this is what you guys told me, but it's not like I was coming from a place of, oh, woe was me and this is what happened, and my coaches were so terrible. That's not what I said. I just said like, listen, like this was my dream. I had naysayers. They were my own coaches, and this is how it affected me as I went through my college career. It wasn't me. It was just me speaking my truth and my experience.
Yeah.
And it was hard because it felt like I had to feel sorry for speaking my truth because of just how my experience was. And yeah, so no, I would say not really. I did have to, again, explain my side and say like, this is how I felt and how I was treated. And my parents can back me up because they were sitting there with me. So during all of our meetings when it came to recruiting, and yeah, and honestly, that I started like once I graduated high school, that I started driving like 2.5 hours to start training with Chris Waller. Because I knew I needed that better coaching and better training to prepare me for that next step to UCLA. But no, there's no hate in my heart. I need to emphasize that too, because me and my senior speech, like it was taken the wrong way. And so there really isn't like, listen, I always loved the sport. I was never burnt out. My parents did a really good job of, after every season, like giving me a 2-week break of no gymnastics, because burnout is also really, really prevalent in our sport. It's a year-round sport. It's not like a seasonal thing like football and basketball and softball and, where you can just do other things. Like gymnastics is very, very rigorous. So I loved the sport from beginning to end. And I can thank my parents and honestly just my experience at the gym that I went to. I just loved the sport so much. So there's just, yeah, if anything, it just showed me like, this is how I want to encourage girls, as I'm teaching them choreography, or like when younger girls come to me with their experiences. But yeah, the naysayers can also be your coaches. And yeah, I just think you can be real with them, but also still be like, hey, like my job is to help you reach your goals. And even if they're extremely far-fetched, be like, listen, like, I just think there's a way to go about it that's not just like, oh.
Right. So how did you use that energy from what they had said to be able to become who you are today? Like, what did you do with that? Like, and when you mentioned choreography and stuff like that, did that influence how you go about what you do now? Because I think, at times there are, we go through things that are super, definitive, that define certain moments in our life, that really cause us to be able to see things from a certain perspective. Or even when we're working with people, we're trying to be aware that some of the experiences that we had, we don't, create that same thing for somebody else. So do you feel, because of, how your coaches responded to your goals of where you said you wanted to go, does that drive how you go about, what you do, choreography or anything that you're doing in life right now?
Yeah, it was my main motivator to get to UCLA. It's hard to, train every day to like working towards your goal when you were told that's not going to happen. It's like, okay, well, I'm going to do everything I can. Since you don't think I can do it, then I'm going to figure out a way that I can. And I had a coach who ended up coming in, I think my senior year. He was amazing. His name was Alan Nevins, and he was really passionate about, like, he went to all the conferences and stuff and knew the technique I needed and to be better, and was like really intentional with working with me on specific things and training that I just didn't get even growing up, and just seeing how much better my gymnastics was in just that last year was really, because of the new coach that came in to help out. And yeah, I would say it was my main motivator in those 6 years. And even at UCLA, I had already competed in my freshman year, because I remember my parents came down and said, "Oh, you think you're going to be in lineup?" And I was like, "I think so, but I don't know." And I started competing on vault, and then I got thrown in on bars, and I still felt like I felt like I had finally like proved them wrong, but it still stuck with me. Like I still felt like I had that weight of just like, oh, but maybe I'm not supposed to be here still, even though I'm competing, and but yeah, and even today, just it just taught me to lean on my support system. So we go through challenges, like life is always in session. We go through challenges every day, whether it be in the adult world. Adulting is hard, taxes are hard, just like life is tough. And we go through many seasons in life, and whether it be like personal, with family, with friendships, relationships, coaching, teams, just anything you're going through, but really just leaning on your support system and really trusting those people that have your best interest and know your heart, and leaning on that. So that just taught me to lean on my support system in that time, and even well after college. And what I do now is just really leaning on the people that know my goals and my intentions in this life, and they know what I'm passionate about and what I do, and kind of blocking out the people that are, always negative, or, we all know those people that can be kind of draining when you're around them. So just being very intentional with who you spend your time with and stuff. So we're still learning. It's a journey.
Absolutely. No, and I think that's the nice thing about life, is life allows us to be able to take what it throws at us, and for us to decide what we're going to do with it. We can decide that we're going to become better, or we can allow life to kind of beat us down, and seeing that you use it as a motivator to be able to get to where you wanted and to compete, and also to be able to talk about it even now, and still be moving forward, which is great. I also want to talk about your other coaches. So Chris Waller was the assistant, as well as Randy Lane was the other assistant. Randy Lane currently is the head coach at LIU, Long Island University. He's been a big advocator for more college gymnastics programs. And then Chris Waller, as I mentioned, was the head coach after Miss Val. But I want you to talk about them too, and how they impacted you in your career at UCLA, but also them as people, what kind of impacts they had on you.
Yes. So I'll start with Chris, because Chris became like my second dad too. So like Miss Val was like the mom, but Chris was amazing. Like I said, I started driving to his club gym in the summer before I got to UCLA, just to help with training. And he's so passionate and just always wants to get you fired up. And it's really just him figuring out, what best motivates the athlete. He's going to approach every athlete differently. Again, from the personality test, like, oh, JaNay I shouldn't yell at her, she's going to start crying. So let's figure out like how to, I was pretty slow as a freshman. I took a lot of turns. I like finishing assignments. I was not very efficient. I finally figured it out by senior year, but just, working through that, I would be in like, but Chris would always just be the one to kind of keep knowing that like why you're there, and it's like you're here for a team and a collective goal. It's not an individual sport anymore. So finish the assignment in a timely manner. Also, you can't just take a bunch of turns, because now you were 18 and your body's breaking down, like from the 18 to 22. Our bodies aren't bouncing back like they were when we were 14. So looking to the seniors, like, look how efficient they are. They're finishing their assignment in like less than 5 turns. You don't need to. And then, just kind of figuring that out. Our relationship grew into something so amazing. I don't even know how to describe it. Like, it just got to the point where, like my senior year, like we would I was efficient, but it'd be like very determined but like playful, and like I would always like steal his food, and just like just like little things like that, where we would just have like this like relate. And granted, every girl is going to have a different relationship with all the coaches, but this is just like my like experience with the coaches. But yeah, I think because Chris, he became like my freshman year. Miss Val was always on like choreography and beam. And so I would work with her on like my dance and stuff like that. But Randy was on bars my freshman year, and Chris had like vault and floor. And then they flipped, I think, from sophomore year on. So once I had Chris on bars, it was really about my knee. I had 3 knee surgeries by the time I finished. So really just figuring out, okay, like how's the look, Kyla Ross sticks this way, you're gonna stick this way, but figuring out like, because every gymnast is different. Like Kyla Ross, had glued feet, but she was able to just like keep her knees bent and be fine. But I needed to like land and pop up. Like I needed to like straighten my legs, because staying down, I would like tip and stuff like that. So just being really intentional on how each gymnast best trains and how they're best motivated, and he's going to use that to become your best self. I feel like that's what because the way he would approach me when I was having like a bad day is different. How would be a different way he would approach a different athlete or a different teammate when they were having a bad day. So that's a little bit of Chris. He's amazing. I think he belongs in the gym. He's really passionate about what he does, and just I'm very blessed and thankful that I was able to experience him as a coach. And then Randy, I was an overthinker. So Randy knew just to keep my cues simple and like not fill my brain with a bunch of things, because I feel like when you get a bunch of corrections and it gets pretty overloaded and you get overwhelmed. So when I would have Randy on vault or even on bars, it would just be very like, okay, you need to do this and this. That's it. And he would just be the loudest person to cheer for you. He was also very real too. I would say all of the coaches were really real, and just amazing. Yeah, I went to New York literally when I brought my mom out back in April, and we got coffee because Randy is still out there. So it's just really cool to see them still doing what they're doing, and just want to help out and be advocates and, help push gymnasts to be their best self. But yeah, they're all amazing. I loved the coaching staff, even when we had like Dom when he came in as an assistant coach for floor, just all of them, like they all like worked so well together. And even in my senior year, it was like the easiest year. We had like maybe 2 team meetings that entire year, and the whole team was bought in, and the coaches, I would probably agree that it was also the easiest year, because it was just, little drama, and, we finally had it figured out because every team is different. So, yeah.
No, that's good. I think touching on the topics of your coaches, I think is really important, because a lot of, the reasons why some people go there initially is, as you said, going to certain places because it was UCLA and you went to their camps. But then also when you get to know your coaching staff and their heart for you, and they know how intentional they have been, like they intentionally learn who JaNay Honest was as a gymnast and as a person, and what would get you to be able to get the best out of you, right? And also cared about you, and with myself being a coach, that's something I'm learning. Like just listening to you talk, I'm just self-reflecting in myself, just hearing you just talk about some of the things that you go through, that sometimes we may not always know as coaches, just because either, especially for me, I wasn't a gymnast, so not having the same
Were you
experience.
not?
Nope.
Oh, like Miss Val. Miss Val wasn't a gymnast either. That's so great.
And so sometimes it's nice to be able to hear from, the gymnasts and their experiences, because then it puts us in check to be able to truly understand, how to meet those each individual where they're at and get the most out of them, and help them accomplish their goals. And the other factor too is, your peers, your teammates, and how big of a deal that was. Can you talk about when you're coming into UCLA, who was there and who were some of the girls that were currently on the team during your recruiting process that kind of, impacted you? And then also segue into talking about your team mates, during the years you were there, and some of the relationships that you had built during your time, but also relationships that you have now.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to touch on what you said about the coaches and the athletes. I also think it's really important for the athletes to communicate with their coaches. I think sometimes we shut down when something is said, and we just think, okay, I think we should leave it at that. But really just communicating with your coaches if you have a mental block or something's happening, or if like any situation, just communication goes a long way, and that continues to be a thing, whether it be, coach to coach, coach to athlete. And if something is wrong or something is up, then you need to communicate that. And, it needs to be like this relationship, because you want to help the coach wants to help the athlete elevate, but it's kind of helping each other elevate as well. So kind of breaking down that barrier of like, oh, they're the coach, so I think I'm just going to stay quiet, but really just showing the coach, how that affected you, or, whatever, like, hey, like, I'm not really in my best place, like best, like headspace today. Like, can we do basics? Because I don't feel safe to do this. Like, and that became a real thing when I came in college. Cause sometimes, a full bar routine, and like, let's say like there was a death in the family, or like something's going on at home, and you don't feel mentally just like there in the gym. But communicating that, and that just became I feel like the culture is finally changing in the gym, where, there's definitely more communication, and like where gymnastics is very, it's like 90, or any sport is 90% mental, but we can get seriously injured. So just checking in with your athlete, like, how are we feeling today? Is this a day where we can push through, or is this a day where we need to go back to basics and we're still getting something done, and we're being constructive and productive, and not the opposite. I can't think of the word right now, but not counterproductive. Yeah. But yeah, so I came in, Samantha Peshik took a 5th year, my freshman year. So I was really excited to be on the team with her, because I watched her in 2008. So it was just really cool to be teammates with her, and it's cool to just, work with her, because she's, the founder of Beam Queen, and I'm a choreographer. Oh my goodness, choreographer for Beam Queen Boot Camp.
Yeah.
And then who else? Danisha Francis was on the team, Sadiqa Bynum, Jenny Pinches. I'm trying to think of like Hallie Mosette, who's, assistant coach at Stanford now. Obviously Peng Peng Lee, who is still in LA, and we're very close. I'm trying to there's just so many. And I also loved the diversity too. That's another thing that drove me to UCLA. I just loved how diverse the team was, because I come from like a predominantly like white area. So I just loved, like, I wanted to like experience other cultures and people and different backgrounds. And that was something that was really important to me.
Yeah.
And then people that were on the team when I was being recruited that really inspired me, I would say like Vanessa Zamaripa, Maddie Larson, when she was on the team. Who else? Monique De La Torre, Alyssa Pritchett. I'm really like, and just well, I don't know if Ariana Berlin was on the team, I think, like when I was being recruited, but just I remember her, always seeing her routines and stuff like that. And yeah, Elise Hoffner Hibbs. Yeah, the list goes on. I don't know. But like, and then so it's cool to when you watch them compete, whether it's on TV or you go to poly, and then you go to the summer camps, and like some of them are your counselors and you're like freaking out, so yeah, so I would say, even Kaylee Bayer, and just, and it was really cool, when I would go to the meets and they would recognize me from camp and stuff like that, and just seeing how much fun they were having, and knowing their backgrounds, knowing which ones are walk-ons, and seeing them compete, just like that type of thing, like kept me motivated, like, oh, she's a walk-on and she's out here on the floor. If they don't have a scholarship for me, and especially when because the rules changed, because when I was being recruited, the rules were different. And, by the time I finally, like after my freshman year, like all the scholarships were gone, so it's nice that the rules have changed, because I wish it could be back like in the early 2000s, where you would take your full 5 college visits and then you'd make your decision, because I think that's so important to like visit the school, rather than see like, oh, like this team is doing this, so I want to go there. But it's like, oh, do you want to live there for 4 to 5 years? Do they have the programs that you want to study? Like, these are all the things that, you need to think about, because it's your future after, you're a student first. So it's like, you got to think about the things that's going to come after gymnastics. I would say like my really good friend, we were roommates, is Melissa Metcalf. We're really, really close, but she's, coaching up at Airborne. And then Pua Hall is still in LA. Sonia's at nursing school over in Massachusetts. Rochelle's doing her thing. There was like a big class, Carly, who is our manager. She's really close, living in LA. She's a teacher. So it's cool just to see us all doing like the things that we're really passionate about. But yeah, so I think I answered your question of like who was there, and then who was there when I was there, and then like what we're doing, or like who I'm so close with. But yeah, it's really cool. It's cool to have that sisterhood. I mean, I would come from like a small area. So I would really compete by myself by the time I was level 10. So it was cool to have like Bruin sisters and have that community, and not be alone, because that's what makes it fun in college gymnastics, because it's like a team oriented thing.
So talk about even the campus, because I think, UCLA is a big, at least in regards to, if you talk about it, a lot of people know of UCLA, so they could have the assumption that it might be this humongous school. How did it feel to you? Did it feel like it was a really big campus? Was there a lot of people there? Because LA is obviously has a lot of people, so you could assume that UCLA has a lot of people there. And so can you talk about like, college life at UCLA,
right
outside of gymnastics?
Right. It's actually the smallest UC campus, fun fact. So it felt really snug. UCLA is built like a bowl. So up here was the dorms and stuff, and then you go down the hill, and then there's like Poly and like the Ash Center and like Kirkhoff, and the coffee shops and food places, and then up here, and then as you go up, it's like where all the classes are. So it's actually pretty snug. It's not crazy. Like I know UC Davis, you need a bike to go get places, because everything is super spread out. And yeah, because you're in LA, you're going to see people and celebrities and athletes like in the off seasons, like NFL players will be playing or practicing, on the football field, where UCLA football plays, or even on the IM field. You'll have like celebrities and athletes bring their kids to summer camps, because it's LA and we're by Beverly Hills. So, and then because we're right next to Westwood, which has the 2 famous theaters, like the Westwood Theater, and the other one that's right across the street, there's premieres that happen there all the time, like red carpet premieres. So like A-list, it's just really cool who you run into. I remember one time, I was getting a Pizookie with Sofina De Jesus at BJ's, and we surprisingly there was like no one in BJ's at this time, and we like were sat upstairs for some reason, but like the whole bottom floor was empty, and like Kendall Jenner was like having lunch, and we were like, is that Kendall Jenner? And it's just, it's crazy. I know people that have seen Zendaya. I mean, like just the movie premieres that happen, like you don't know who you're gonna run into, but just you can be starstruck. But yeah, so it was really cool. I wanted to go to UCLA because, I wanted to be in broadcasting, and dance is something I'm really passionate about. So LA just seemed like the hub for what I want to do, which is another reason why I was, very set on going to UCLA, because I knew just it was like the perfect place and the perfect opportunity for me to be in the place that I would thrive for what I want to do as well. But yeah, no, it's crazy. You never know who you're going to run into, and you can, people, you'll see like cameras around, or, like a group of people, and you're like, oh, who's here? We have Brew and Bashed, and there'll be like celebrity judges. I think Corbin Bleu was one time, and they'll get like really cool performers and stuff. So it's a really good time. I think, if anything, I always like to tell people that are going into college to just take in every moment. I know you're trying to survive the day, especially freshman year, but the 4 years fly by. And if you take a fifth year, it still flies by. You don't know where the time goes, but just if I would have known what I know now, it'd have been like, just, doing my best every day, but really being grateful for each day that I get to be there, because I was like fully living my dream. It was my dream to go to UCLA. And I'm not saying that I didn't, but it's like, I wish I would have just enjoyed it more. Cause I remember my senior year, I'm like walking to class, I'm like, wow, I have 2 more weeks here, and it's crazy. I don't know. So just really taking in each day, and just not taking it for granted, because I know you can get lost in the busyness and the hustle, and you're just trying to make it through the day, but just kind of taking little moments for yourself to center and like be grounded.
Yeah, no, that's good. And thank you for kind of talking about that, and kind of give the listeners and the viewers, kind of a perspective of, because again, if you haven't been there, it's hard to really imagine those things, and also some of the misconceptions that people may have, or even to verify some of the some of the thoughts that people do have, right? The final thing I want to kind of talk about is, I want to talk about, where, like, what are you doing now? What has gymnastics done for you, and where has it led you to now? So you mentioned a little bit about choreography. So how did a girl grew up in California who was
the middle of nowhere, mind you, like Central California, so the valley, lots of cows and cornfields. So definitely don't think the Bay or even SoCal. Your girl was up in the middle, so definitely more small town vibe for sure when it comes to California. But yeah.
Yes. So how did you get from where you came from, a small town girl, to UCLA, where you could see celebrities at almost any given time,
Yeah.
being on one of the most watched programs, especially when you think about their floor routines and their bar routines, and a program that is filled with Olympians, but wasn't a star in regards to having a title coming in, to what did that lead you in now? I know some of the things that you're doing, but I want people for you to talk about where it's led you to, and what are like some or all the things that you're involved in, including how you mentioned choreography, and also those the beam boot camps that are by.
Oh yeah. Yep. So I knew I wanted to be in broadcasting. I never was the kid that said I want to be this when I grow up, but I knew I wanted to do something with TV that wasn't acting. And I knew I wanted to be in front of the camera, which is crazy because I was not a very compelling speaker, especially as a freshman. And so when the coaches were like, you want to do broadcasting, but they weren't like, ooh, you shouldn't. But it was like, okay, how can we help her find her voice if this is what she wants to do? So there's another example of just like, okay, we gonna figure this out, like, because I did not speak freshman year. I was because I was a walk-on and I was already just scared in general to speak up. So it was nice to, finally find my voice and find my place and how I lead, and also continuing to build on that. But so I started working in the communications department, just figuring out ways I can do Q&As and just like work on like my interview style. And then me and Pang were co-hosts for Brew and Banter, which is that seasonal show to cover like the gymnastics season. And we had hosts every week, and it was a YouTube posted on YouTube, UCLA Athletics YouTube, which was really cool. And so that was a way to get me like, okay, this is me kind of figuring out like, is this something I can do? Absolutely. It was just so much fun, especially because it was pre-recorded and it kind of gave you that vibe of like, you know, prepping, you know, for the show every week and stuff like that. So once I graduated, it's a lot. That's why I said, you know, it's really important to lean on your support system, because you go from having so much structure. You know, I did this sport for 17 years and then, you know, I didn't want to coach. So it's like, okay, well, what I want to do now, I have to start from square one. And I didn't have time to do like a crazy, like traveling internships or anything like that. But just knowing and understanding that it was going to work out. I didn't know how, but just knowing that it was going to work out. And so I knew I wanted to do broadcasting. I did not know when my first gig was going to happen, but I graduated in 2018, had my major, knee surgery, full cartilage transplant, and then went on job interviews. I knew I needed to stay in LA, but rent is expensive. So I knew I needed to figure out how I was going to pay my rent, you know, once that stipend stopped. I knew I didn't really want to go into like retail or serving or anything like that. I wanted to, you know, have like a more corporate job just to give me like those business development skills. And so I started working at a law firm, and I still work at that law firm. Actually, I just do a lot, but so I work at a law firm. And that would just give me like my consistent, you know, like, okay, I have a job here to keep me in LA. And then Sam, who at the time was working with Pac-12, reached out to me. So this was like, you know, in November, I graduated in 2018, and she said, hey, Pac-12 is looking for some analysts. And, you know, I recommended you because I know this is what you want to do. And I said, yes. It was the most nerve-wracking thing I'd ever done. I don't sweat when I'm nervous. I've never sweated at any time before a meet, but believe me, when I was sitting down in that chair about to cover my first Pac-12 dual meet, I was like perspiring. It was like so much. I was so nervous. I was shaking. But yeah, so I got my first Pac-12 gig 6 months after graduating, strictly just from my network already, and just people knowing what I want to do. And I obviously, it was my first one. I was really nervous, but once I got my footing, you know, they kept asking me back, and, you know, I was given more and more meet each year. And then dance is something I've always been very passionate about. You know, I did dance and gymnastics at the same time. Obviously I was more focused on gymnastics because, you know, I loved both, but I really just, especially when college came into the picture, you know, you just have to, I think with those two, you have to really commit to fully to one. But I would dance whenever I could. So my club gym at the time, you know, we had a whole dance rotation. We had recitals, like we had that. I don't think clubs really do that anymore, but we literally had dance recitals like in a theater, like, and it was this whole production thing. So I really loved that. And so by the time I got to high school and I transferred from my private school, because my parents were like, all right, well, she's going to a public college, so she's going to need to go to a public school so she can kind of get used to, you know, more diversity and bigger classes. You know, the private school I went to, each graduating class was 60. And then, you know, that's a big culture shock too, especially if you're going from that to a big public university. So they had to go to public school, but they had a dance team, which means I didn't have to do PE. So I auditioned for that and made the cut for the advanced performance dance team. So that meant we were doing like the rallies, dance shows, we were doing the marching band stuff, we were doing all of that. And it was just really cool to kind of actually be in a dance world that didn't affect like practice at all, because that was at school. Yes, there were times where I had, you know, to compete at nationals or regionals and I would miss, you know, the dance show, but we made it work. But it was able for me to continue my passion for that. And honestly, I give credit to Kay Ford. She was my dance teacher in high school, because I'm fully immersed myself in the dance world now that I retired from gymnastics. So I think I maybe took like 2 dance classes as a student athlete. So now that I like fully, after I retired, I like just started taking more classes. Heels is my jam, but like hip hop, jazz, funk, and contemporary. As long as I'm taking classes, I'm happy. If gigs come along, it's amazing. But I did a music video. I did stunts for a little bit. A lot of gymnasts go into stunting because it's an easy transition. But if your body's healthy, go for it. I did it for 1.5 years and I was like, my knees are hurting, my back hurts. So, but yeah, I think I was in that phase where it's like, okay, let me try everything and see what I like and see like what's going to stick and what's not and what I'm not the biggest fan of. And so I always tell like especially girls that are graduating now, it's just like try all the things. Like you don't have to have it figured out when you're 23. Like this is your time to figure it out.
Right.
Especially, when if there's a career you think you want to do, and then like life happens and you're like, actually, I'm not the fan of this, and you can switch it. You can always switch. Like I work at a law firm still, and I have attorneys that didn't go to law school until they were 40. So it's like we have time. So just knowing you have time and you don't have to like stick to this one thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I still do broadcasting. That's something I do seasonally, every gymnastics season. And I have a manager, and we're like, trying to expand to other sports and other networks too. But that takes time because you got to build your resume. But there's that. And then because I was a former gymnast, I started doing choreography on the side as well, like for floor routines and stuff. And I said I don't do beam. And so it was really cool for Samantha Peshik, who was the founder of Beam Queen Boot Camp, to reach out to me and say, hey, we need a choreographer tomorrow in Michigan. Are you free? So she flew me out like that night. I hopped on a red eye and choreographed something in my brain on the flight to Michigan. And it's just really cool that, for someone that beam was not her jam. I do like the event a lot, but it just didn't naturally come to me. But, there's a place for me in the Beam Camp family. So that is something, that I do throughout the summer, whenever there's like pop-up events. It's Beam Queen Boot Camp for those who don't know, it's like a clinic that travels all around the country. It's like a 2-day clinic, but it's specifically curated for balance beam, which to me is the scariest event. So like, and you're doing drills and upgrades and confidence and nutrition, choreography, skills, but it's everything like around beam. And it's something I wish that existed when I was a gymnast, because baby, I think I would have been a beamer if it was. So that's something I'm doing as well. And like I said, I fully dove into the dance world. So I just got accepted into this dance mentorship, Cameron Lee's dance mentorship. So I'm training every Saturday from 6 to 10 p.m. and every Wednesday from 8 to 10 p.m. And I had the same mindset. I went to UCLA to reach my potential as a gymnast and as a person. And Cameron Lee has that same intensity that like Miss Val, Randy, and Chris did when it comes to, reaching your, tapping into your star quality when it comes to performance. And that's why I wanted to get into this mentorship. And it's okay because I feel it's never too late. I feel like I'm definitely one of the older mentees in there, but not letting that get to me, because I love dance and I want to reach my potential as a performer. So that's why I'm in it. But yeah, so that's what I'm doing right now. I don't know if I missed anything. I got an Emmy in broadcasting. Me and Sam both have one because we were on the broadcast together. It was Miss Val's last meet. It won an Emmy for best live sports broadcast. And that was my first time doing sideline. And just knowing that, like, no, listen, JaNay, like you're meant to be, like, this is meant to be. You don't have that imposter syndrome or anything like that. We won nationals. I don't know. I'm just, thinking, but we won nationals my senior year. So that was also really cool, and a cherry on top, to go to my dream school and us to, have it to figure it out and, win a national championship, and seeing us do all these cool things now that we're fully into this adult world. I think I covered everything. Let me know if I didn't, but yeah.
No,
So
I think it's good.
I do a lot though.
Yeah. No, I think it's good because I think it gave a full picture, and I think you did a great job talking about that, talking about what got you to UCLA, and then talking about your, the campus, talking about your time there, talking about your coaches, talking about your teammates, and then how life can happen outside of gymnastics. Because sometimes, because we're in this sport that really tells us what to do the whole time, right? It's very hard for gymnasts to feel like they're free on their own, because for the most part you're told, what your assignment is and how many reps you do, and things like that. And so getting to a place where you have to become independent, can be hard and to transition into certain careers, but all the other tools and the work ethic and the hours and the dedication that you put in, it really gets you ready for those things just because you've been working hard at it, and having support systems, like you talked about, is very, very crucial and important. But to kind of to talk about it again, like doing life outside of it, outside of gymnastics, and being able to still be a part of the sport, but also have other things like being in a law office, right? Or, choreography for an event that you didn't really feel like it was your event, right? And it's cool how life really works, and it, and life puts you in positions where you're supposed to be, right? You just stay consistent with what you know you're supposed to do, and you just trust the process, and it always places you where you need to be, even if it may not seem like it. It's either placing you or getting you ready to be where you're supposed to be. So I really appreciate you taking time to be vulnerable, and to talk about your experience. I'd like to, sometimes, follow up. I'm hoping to be able to connect with the coaches at UCLA, and get there, and, kind of talk to them, but also be there in person. And,
Right.
maybe even, if I'm at a competition, be able to be like, hey, you see JaNay, who we had on the podcast, doing what she's doing live and stuff like that. And even just having other conversations, and possibly, talking to some of your other teammates, and stuff like that about their experiences. And, I want to encourage other gymnasts to be able to feel okay telling your story, because it's going to motivate the ones who are coming behind you, or even the ones who are doing what you did. I think it's really important that your peers hear about the same things that is probably processing in their own head and their own mind. We all have probably gone through some of the things that JaNay has talked about. I know as coaches too, some of the things that JaNay has talked about, I've experienced, and being able to check myself and know that, hey, there's areas I can get better. So I really appreciate you, JaNay, taking time to, talk to me on this platform, and to really share your story. And I hope this encourages other athletes to be able to talk about their journeys, and to encourage, as I said, the young ones coming behind them, or even the ones that are in college gymnastics right now, because I believe that your peers is your greatest influence. So whenever you're around people, even though other people may motivate you, like celebrities or your coaches and stuff, you really are driven by the ones who are right next to you, because they can relate more directly to you than anybody else. And so having someone like you who's still, young and still involved in the sport and can talk to the experience, I think it's going to impact a lot. And again, thank you for sharing your story. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in for another episode of Heated Conversations. Remember, like, share, subscribe, and leave comments and questions that you may want me to ask in the future.